Tonight, an arrest has been made in relation to a Mount Pearl murder.
On arrival, the officers confirmed that a 65-year-old female was deceased inside the home.
A 14-year-old boy has been charged, and police are on the lookout for potential evidence.
The province's health minister brought some good news today about new hires, which will see more medical centres open longer in some smaller communities.
Those sites, at a minimal, will operate 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, guaranteed for the next 12 months.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll have that story coming up.
It's going to be just an absolute incredible celebration of who we are and who we want to be.
Another funding announcement for the arts community. I'll have the details on where $2.7 million will go just ahead.
The Newfoundland Insectarium in Deer Lake has been open for 25 years.
It is a world-class facility.
Every day is different people coming through. You meet such fabulous people.
I'm Alex Kennedy, and we'll take you for a tour inside where you can meet guys like this on Here and Now.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Heather Gillis in for Carolyn Stokes. We'll get to all of those stories shortly, but first, the RNC has charged a 14-year-old boy with second-degree murder in connection to the death of a Mount Pearl woman. The 65-year-old was found dead in her home last Thursday. Here and Now's Sarah Blackmore has our top story.
On Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, investigators located a 14-year-old male at a home in Mount Pearl, placing the youth under arrest. The 14-year-old male from Mount Pearl has been charged with second-degree murder in connection with the homicide of the 65-year-old female from Mount Pearl.
Police say a 14-year-old also from Mount Pearl has been arrested, charged with killing the woman found in this home on Smallwood Drive on Thursday, her home.
The teenage boy was arrested this morning at 12 a.m. and is being charged with second-degree murder. Now, police won't say if the two were related, but they have confirmed that the victim and the boy knew one another. They're also asking for anybody in the area to keep an eye out for a potentially key piece of evidence.
Investigators are specifically seeking a blue plastic recycling bag that has been believed to be discarded in the Smallwood Drive or surrounding area of Mount Pearl encompassing Park Avenue. And that would have been on Thursday, August 3rd. The RNC requests that the community check your property, including garbage bins, for this item, and contact police should you locate any suspicious property in the area.
Not only are police asking people to keep an eye out for a discarded recycling bag, the RNC is also looking for anyone with video footage in the area, CCTV, dashcam, or doorbell video. The identity of the 14-year-old is protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, and police say he is being held in custody. As the RNC investigation continues, there are still many unanswered questions, like when and how the homicide happened. Sarah Blackmore, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
To healthcare now, a promise for hospitals in Whitburn and Bayvert. The province says regular services will resume this fall. Now, this announcement came as the health minister addressed recent recruitment efforts for doctors and nurses in the province. But the NDP points out that many are still without a primary caregiver. Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton has more.
We've been able to recruit over 40 physicians in Newfoundland and Labrador, over 170 nurses, which are made up of LPNs, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners.
Most of those doctors will be heading to hospitals. As a result, St. Lawrence, Whitburn, New West Valley, Bayvert, and Springdale medical centres will be open a lot more in the next 6 to 8 weeks, according to the health minister.
We should be able to guarantee that those sites, at a minimal, will operate 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, guaranteed for the next 12 months.
Some of the doctors have already started, and all will be practicing by December. But they all aren't heading to St. John's.
Been able to fill areas such as Bonavista, Bayvert, Carbonear, Clarenville, Fogo, Twillingate, for example, with permanent positions.
It's not just in-person services that will improve. The province put out a virtual request for proposals which could start as early as September.
providing virtual primary care as well as virtual emergency department coverage, which will help keep our Category B facilities from going on diversion.
A large number of those new nurses are local or from Canadian schools. The province is still using recruiters in places like India, and that's starting to pay off as well.
We currently have 18 job offers that are out, and we hope to have those folks joining us in the fall. We also have another 40 that are ready to go out, and we have an influx of over 450 that we're going to be looking at their resumes and assessing them over the fall.
Despite the hirings, the nursing vacancy rate remains about the same. They're still using travel nurses, but Malloy says that will slow down in the fall.
We are filling some of our permanent gaps. So although the rate, when we look overall, because it includes casual, our casual workforce as an example, when you actually sort of peel that onion back, then we are starting to make some strides in our vacancy rate.
While the hiring has been applauded by the provincial NDP, many still don't have a family doctor or any idea when they'll get one.
I think people would not mind waiting if they knew, okay, by this time in 2 months, or this time in 6 months from now or a year from now, this problem will be resolved.
Osborne says the province has lost doctors in the past few months to retirement or jobs elsewhere. But with the addition of these new hires, the health authority can confirm it's bringing in more healthcare professionals than it's losing. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
The Premier is forging ahead with his plan to bring down the controversial harbour fence in St. John's. The big black fence that runs along the waterfront was constructed back in 2013, and it's drawn ire ever since. Andrew Furey wrote Ottawa last summer asking if anything can be done about it. Today, the Premier said he had a great conversation with the Minister of Transport last month prior to the federal cabinet shuffle.
We do need to take this fence down. We do need to alter it. There's other harbors, around the country and around the world with the same level of security, the same level of imports, arguably more imports, exports in some harbors that don't have this fence. So we need to figure out a solution that duly recognizes the responsibility of the Port Authority while allowing Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and tourists alike to enjoy a beautiful harbour front. So now that there's a new minister, I'm hopeful that that message has been passed on, and I will tell you definitively I will be engaging with the new minister to ensure that that message is heard and that we come to solutions with respect to the fence.
Temperatures stay a little bit on the cool side yet again. 16 degrees is where we topped out in St. John's. You take a look at the west coast, temperatures a little bit warmer, 21 to 23 degrees. And then up across Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures. The hot spot, Lab City, but we do have that temperature around 19 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay today. Taking a live look out there right now. Beautiful. Lots of sunshine at the moment. 19 still, looking at a dew point of about 13, so not a whole lot of humidity in the air, but the temperatures are going to drop a little bit as we head through the next couple of hours. Down by midnight, you'll be looking at your temperature around 16 degrees. And if we take a look at the temperatures over the next couple of days, they are going to stay on the cool side for most of the island, even parts of Labrador. But as we head through the next couple of days, eventually we're going to see a shift in those winds. They'll be more southerly by the time we get into Friday. This is going to bring some heat and humidity to parts of the island. Labrador, you're going to stay on the cool side as we see your winds stay onshore through your Friday. But yes, lots of heat. We'll talk all about that and have your full forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Instagram and Facebook are now blocking news in Canada, and it's in response to the federal government legislation that now requires social media companies to pay for Canadian news content. But if you can't turn to social media for local news, where can you go? Here and Now's Daryl Roberts has the answers.
So, you've been blocked. It's going to happen to everyone, and it's already happened to some of us. This is what it looks like when Mark Zuckerberg shuts you out. Meta, that's Mr. Zuckerberg's company, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, is blocking access to news in Canada. That means that you won't see content from CBC or any other Canadian or international news companies. And it isn't just Meta. Google says it will also block access to news in Canada later this year. It's in response to the federal government's Online News Act, which requires tech companies to pay media outlets for access to the news content they share. Tech companies say the law is unfair and they won't be paying. So here we are, slowly losing access to news on social media. And if you can't find news where it used to be, where can you find out what's happening in your community? For the latest news, download the CBC News app and turn on notifications for breaking news updates. On your desktop, bookmark cbc.ca/NL. Tune in to CBC Radio 1. Catch Here and Now at 6 p.m. on CBC TV, 5:30 in most of Labrador. You can also watch the show on our YouTube channel. Download the CBC Gem app. You can find podcasts and CBC radio stories on CBC Listen or your favorite podcast app. Now, you might still be able to see news on Facebook and Instagram, but according to Meta, that won't last long, and soon you'll find that you too are blocked.
Artists and arts organizations got a jump start on 2024 today with a funding announcement at Eastern Edge Gallery in downtown St. John's. Here and Now's Henrika Wilhelm has the details.
It's all in preparation for 2024, the proclaimed Year of the Arts.
You just can't cut a ribbon on January 1st and have all the festivals up and running and everybody prepared. So this is some seed funding.
That seed funding, almost $3 million. $2 million will go towards Arts NL to develop a grant program that helps artists with their creations for the Year of the Arts. Another $700,000 for an arts celebration fund with the same goal in mind. About 40 organizations are eligible to apply. This funding, it's welcomed by artists.
For me, it means more opportunities to get my work out there, but also to, as a staff person at Eastern Edge, to be able to continue to support the community, to get their art out there. Folks who are not as involved with the arts, to get them involved and bring them in and just spread the word. Art is very important to the culture, especially here in Newfoundland. So this funding is going to be great. It's going to make all kinds of new things possible.
Society would miss art if it wasn't here, but there's a difference between recognizing the value of something and being willing to kind of put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and fund that thing when it's part of this calculus of, there's never quite enough resources to do everything that we dream of, and it's very affirming to see art recognized as being a priority.
Today is one of multiple investments supporting the provincial arts and culture sector made recently, like the construction of a new theatre in the capital and a new film school. Today's funding is open to artists of all kinds, musicians, actors, visual arts, and they say it's vital.
Things like living expenses, additional supplies, paying people to do interviews for their modeling. Things cost money, especially in today's economy, and, putting off these meaningful projects that some of these artists are doing requires a lot of resources.
Yet, both artists and politicians stress the money doesn't just benefit the arts community. The sector should matter to everyone as it benefits the economy and because the arts are a fundamental part of provincial culture. Henrika Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
The Newfoundland Insectarium is marking an unbelievable milestone this summer. It's showcasing bugs and other critters from around the world. It's been doing that for about a quarter of a century. Here and Now's Alex Kennedy brings us inside.
The building that houses the Newfoundland Insectarium began life as a barn on an old dairy farm. Now, it's a staple of tourism in western Newfoundland, with over 500,000 people passing through its doors since opening in 1998. Owners Lloyd and Sandy Hollett worked 7 days a week for 5 months straight during tourism season. And although they say they're beginning to plan for retirement, they wouldn't have it any other way.
There's never a morning when I get up and I don't feel like I want to go to work. I'm anxious to get here every day.
Yeah, I try to get her to stay home some mornings. And no, I'm heading up, so.
Lloyd Hollett says he was never interested in bugs growing up, but became fascinated by them while studying forestry in college. He soon began collecting the little critters.
I just wrote every country in the world and asked them would they send me some insects. Not to build an insectarium, that was just for my school exhibits.
When his collection grew, Hollick got a visit from the owner of the Insectarium in Montreal, and the journey to open one in Newfoundland began.
You meet such fabulous people.
Interesting people from all over the world.
We've made lifelong friends
Yeah.
here just through meeting them at the Insectarium.
The building houses insects from all over the world, like beetles, spiders, and ants, who have made the building their own little colony. The butterfly garden is also a fan favorite, hosting dozens of different species.
One's a kind of owl one.
Yeah, I was just about to say the owl ones.
And blue ones, and then, yeah, there's a lot of colors, so.
So it's absolutely amazing that a place like this has been here for 25 years.
25 years later, and the Newfoundland Insectarium is still going strong. It's actually on pace for its largest summer ever, and is open to locals and tourists alike until Thanksgiving. Alex Kennedy, CBC News, Deer Lake.
Still on the province's west coast, thousands of tourists took over downtown Corner Brook today. The Canal Princess came into port early this morning. The cruise ship can hold 2,400 passengers and 900 crew. It's one of 5 calls to Corner Brook this month alone. The Canal Princess is touring the world on a 100-day cruise through Canada, Iceland, and Greenland. And that's just naming a few of its stops. The ship left Brisbane, Australia on June 6th. Here and Now's Colleen Connors spoke with a few passengers about the experience.
Lovely. It's really nice, it's welcoming, which is better than a lot of places that we've found, particularly in Europe. And no, this is lovely. This is easy.
This is our first world cruise, and
Probably the last.
you can edit that.
100 days is no joke. That's a big commitment.
Yes, it is, and you start to wonder what's happening at home, but it's been wonderful. The ship's wonderful. They look after you. You don't have to worry about going to the supermarket and thinking what you're going to have for dinner. It's great. I love it.
It's a very large cruise ship. What's it like on board?
It's very pretty inside, very sort of back to the last days of cruising, I think. Old-fashioned sort of luxury.
Wow, wonderful.
It's very comfortable and it provides us with all we need. It's got good Wi-Fi, which is really important, even for the old folks.
Well, you have to connect with family and friends back home. That doesn't stop, right?
Yeah, and pay the bills.
So not all vacation all the time, right?
Life goes on and you have to be able to pay the bills while you're away.
You worry about that when you get home. So tell me, where...
It's me. Hi. I'm the problem, it's me.
You don't have to be in Toronto to get a taste of Taylor.
She's only like 10 years older than me and she's doing this. It was kind of inspiring. Like, hey, maybe I can do this too.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Now that song's gonna be in my head all day. Taking a look at what's happening right now, we do have some cloud cover moving in, some showers and rain as well for parts of the province. We'll talk all about it coming up.
Welcome back. Taylor Swift fever is nothing new, but the Eras Tour madness is just getting started for Canadians. The American singer announced last week she's coming to Toronto for 6 shows at the end of her tour. But in St. John's, Swifties won't have to wait that long to hear her next song live. On this typical Tuesday night, Here and Now's Talia Cleott has the story.
Counting the footsteps, praying the floor won't fall through.
That's Taylor Swift's Dear John, the first song that 22-year-old musician Aubrey Lamb ever learned to play. She first came across Taylor Swift when she was 6 or 7, and as a young country singer, saw her as a role model.
I mean, you see all these adults who are stars, and they seem like, you know, adults and celebrities. But when you see, hey, she's only like 10 years older than me and she's doing this, it was kind of inspiring. Like, hey, maybe I can do this too.
Dear John.
With the Eras Tour all over social media this summer and nowhere near Newfoundland, she's masterminded a way for Swifties to shake it off closer to home with a 3-hour Taylor tribute concert.
You didn't get to see the Eras Tour, don't worry, we're going to bring the party to Newfoundland and we're going to have fun and it's going to be a great time.
With the new Toronto dates announced for November 2024, Aubrey would love to see her live for the very first time.
I'm a pretty big Swiftie. I've always loved Taylor. Now, I'm a country girl at heart, so the old stuff is my favorite compared to the new stuff. But I love all music. I love all her albums.
And Aubrey's not the only one with Taylor Swift tickets in her wildest dreams.
Hopefully I can get a chance to go see her, but I'm not sure where I'll be since it's so far away, but hopefully I could go. Yeah, I wish it was more closer, but it's better than like farther away. So I mean, I'm hoping I could get tickets to go out there.
I guess I never really thought she was gonna come because everyone said she wasn't, and then when she came, it was kind of exciting news for everyone.
There's interest in these dates from Canadians coast to coast, so it's clear that not everyone who wants tickets will get them.
Hopefully she adds some more locations, maybe so that it's not just the Toronto ones and an all-out war to get the Toronto tickets.
But for fans who have bad blood over not getting tickets, Aubrey is hoping they'll come see her perform some of the singer's hits this Saturday at the Rock House. Talia Cleott, CBC News, St. John's.
Now, before we get to Ashley's forecast, all that dancing, singing, and jumping that Taylor Swift fans have been doing has actually had a real impact.
Yeah, according to the National Post, fans at Swift's Seattle show last month caused the equivalent of a 2.3 magnitude earthquake. And the seismic impact was so strong that it beat the previous record set by fans of the Seahawks back when the football team played against New Orleans back in 2011. So that is, I just thought that was such an interesting little tidbit of information there. So let's see what happens in Toronto next year, that's for sure. I could tell you it was probably a lot warmer in the stadium than it is today out there. 16 degrees in St. John's for this afternoon's high. The temperatures along the south coast of the island between 18 and 20 degrees. And then the hot spot across the island anyway was 23 degrees. That is the hot spot really across the province, 23 degrees in Stephenville today. Up across Labrador, the cold spot was in Nain at 11 degrees, topping out 11 degrees this afternoon. Taking a look outside right now, dry for the moment outside the studios here in St. John's. It's 14 degrees, Humidex value around 16, and those winds out of the north-northeast around 19 kilometers per hour. That is why we're seeing some of these cooler temperatures. And we are waiting for those winds to shift because once they do, the return of that heat and humidity will be the case. Right now, here's a look at the current sustained winds. We haven't really been talking about winds over the last couple of weeks, really. 19 kilometers per hour, like I said, in St. John's. The heaviest winds or the strongest winds right now are in Nain out of the east, around 30 kilometers per hour. You factor in those wind gusts. It's not gusty at the moment, but 30 is what it is in Cartwright. So as we head through the next couple of days, particularly through tomorrow morning and into the afternoon, we're going to start to see those winds pick up for the first time in a while. But the southwest will see those winds first, 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. As we head into the afternoon hours, those winds will jump up, especially in the Rec House area, but we're talking about winds gusting between 60 and 80, even around the Port-au-Port Peninsula. And then as we head into the early morning hours on Thursday, and then into the afternoon, we're looking at those winds gusting from southeastern portions of Labrador down along the northeast coast, and we will see those winds gusting between 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. So that will continue through at least the first half of Thursday. So no surprise, Rec House wind warning in place for the Wednesday evening, Thursday morning time frame. And you're looking at those southeasterly winds gusting somewhere between 100 to 110 kilometers per hour. It's going to be because of this area of low pressure that is going to bring some shower activity in across Labrador, but there's really not a whole lot to speak of at the moment. Just a few spotty showers out there, but those clouds did linger through today, and that will be the story as we head through the night tonight as well. Generally quiet night. Some areas through central will see some clearing patches, and that will allow those temperatures to drop, especially in those low-lying areas through the night tonight, likely into the single digits. But we will see that rain start to move back in for Labrador as we head into tomorrow morning and eventually spread further east. Here's your temperatures for tonight. Like I said, 11 to about 12 degrees, maybe a little warmer for the southwest. But inland areas, especially through central low-lying areas with those single digits, you may even see the risk of some patchy frost. So if you are in low-lying areas and you're at that risk, you're going to want to cover up some of your frost-sensitive plants. Labrador, you're looking at between 10 to 14 degrees overnight tonight. And then tomorrow, like I said, that rain moving in, which will likely be heavy at times for parts of Labrador. Eventually, as we get into the evening hours, tomorrow we're going to start to see those showers move in for southwestern Newfoundland, and then they'll spread further north and further east as we head into the early morning hours on Thursday. Here's your temperatures for tomorrow: 16, 17, 18 degrees for the eastern portion of the island. As you head towards the west coast, those temperatures will be somewhere between 18 to 21. Again, southeasterlies between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. For Labrador, periods of rain, the story for you: 15 degrees in Lab City. You head towards the coast, that'll be the best chance of seeing some sunshine tomorrow. Temperatures generally between 15 to 19 degrees. We'll talk about how much rain to expect and when these temperatures are going to warm up when I come back.
They deserve to have holidays, and they deserve to have sick days. And they don't deserve to be overworked and overstressed. The healthcare in Labrador is inadequate right now.
Going down to emergency-only services. We connect with Leela Evans to hear her concerns for nurses and for patients in Nain. That's just ahead. The Nain Health Clinic has been struggling to provide services lately. For days, it was only able to offer emergency services. And that's raised concerns for Leela Evans. She's MHA for the area and is joining us now from Makovic. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
And as you understand it, why did the clinic only offer emergency services for a number of days last week, Thursday, until yesterday morning?
Well, the announcement came out on Thursday. We didn't see it until Friday. I'm the MHA for the district. I wasn't notified. I was speaking to the Ayukak in Nain, and he didn't know anything about it until Friday. And of course, the local radio station that communicates to the people, that gets the message out, they weren't notified either. So he was disappointed. That was lack of communication. But for me, I've been worried about the move to one provincial health authority, and removing the local Labrador-Grenfell Health Authority from us was, to me, it created a lot of anxiety for me, because on the North Coast in Northern Labrador, our healthcare services are not adequate. We don't have good access to healthcare, and that's reflected in the in what we're seeing now, in terms of the health concerns we're having, also access to healthcare, and some of the illnesses we're having, and some of the deaths. So to me, it's troubling to go to one provincial health authority and now to see that the largest community, Nain, was without local health support services to the clinic Thursday, Friday, and Monday. So I'm really worried about the changes, and I'm really concerned about the lack of staffing. This is because of lack of staffing. It's not a reflection of the nurses. The nurses we have, our permanent nurses, are awesome, and we treat them with respect. We really appreciate and admire them. And, the nurses that come in, fill in, they do an awesome job as well. So this is not a reflection of the nurses. It's a reflection of the services that's being provided to the people on the North Coast.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of impact did having the clinic only be open for emergency services have on people in Nain?
Well, Nain is probably the busiest clinic. It's very, very busy, and it's getting more and more difficult to get an appointment at the clinic. So having, only emergency services for Thursday, Friday, and Monday really, I think, created a backlog. But I was speaking to some of the local residents, including the Ayukak, and what they're telling me is that they're concerned because people don't feel comfortable calling down now. Because they're not really sure if they'll get an appointment, and also they don't want to be bothering the nurses, with their health concerns. And a lot of these people really need to see a nurse and really need to see, a doctor. So it's important for us to be able to have access to the clinic.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned on social media that you'd like to see the new Provincial Health Authority ensure that Nain gets relief nurses to operate that clinic. But given it's been so difficult to recruit healthcare workers, especially to rural and remote communities, how likely is it, do you think, you'll see more staff there to help relieve issues like this?
Well, our nurses deserve breaks. They deserve rest, and they deserve to have holidays, and they deserve to have sick days, and they don't deserve to be overworked and overstressed. So for me, like, one of the things that I'm worried about is what we've seen when we went to one school board for the whole province, and we lost the Labrador representation. We saw the loss of recruitment incentives. Localized is what the Ayukak, Joe Dicker, was talking to me today about. We saw a lot of the services in education be eroded for the North Coast and for all of Labrador. So we're really concerned because the healthcare in Labrador is inadequate right now. So we can't afford a further erosion. So we like to see, first off, we'd like to see some incentives for recruitment for nurses, but most importantly, we like to see the nurses that we have here in Labrador, and especially on the North Coast, treated with respect by the health authorities, so that they can have their breaks, they can have their, they can have their holidays, they can have their sick days, and that they're not overworked and overstressed. You've got to treat the nurses proper. You got to treat them with respect. You got to make sure that, they got quality of life. If not, we're not going to have nurses be, in our clinics, and we're going to see more shutdowns. And we just have to look at what happened Christmas time, where they went on diversion, and it really impacted the access to healthcare.
Okay, well, Leela Evans, thank you so much for sharing your concerns with us this evening.
Thank you, and it is deeply concerning.
We're 2 years away from the Canada Games returning to St. John's. We'll dip into the archives to look at one athlete who made his mark on the last Games. Welcome back. We have more tonight from CBC's special series, Police and Public Trust. That's our investigation into police complaints and discipline across Atlantic Canada. Our journalists have used access to information laws, in some case court challenges, to access relevant records. One of those cases was in Halifax, and that's where the update is tonight. Shayna Luck has that story.
The court case has settled, and Halifax Regional Police acknowledged, after a year of negotiations, it was wrong to withhold the information. The CBC's Atlantic Investigative Unit was looking for information about the complaints the police were getting from the public and how they handled those complaints. There's been a lot of scrutiny on police conduct, and we thought those discipline records could help inform that discussion. Last spring, the police declined to release anything. CBC challenged that in court, and very quickly, a lawyer representing the police and city agreed to a negotiated settlement. They released some documents that were so heavily redacted it was hard to read them. We thought they were still not living up to their obligation under access to information laws, so CBC pressed on and the police released more. Eventually there came a point where CBC believed the police had provided enough information to settle the case. People who study police issues have told us they think having these records is important.
How are we supposed to even begin to understand where reforms need to be made or where resources need to be put, if that's what you want to do, if we don't really have a good picture of where the failures are? And I think some of that is captured in these kind of records.
The Halifax police declined to do an interview, but said in a statement, HRP recognizes and acknowledges that there is an increasing expectation of access to information related to policing, and we have a role to play in reviewing our processes as well as how we have done things historically. At the same time, our resourcing and systems associated with access to information have not kept up. The statement said the department is examining its resources dedicated to access to information. It didn't say why they refused to give CBC the information in the first place. Nova Scotia's Information and Privacy Commissioner says Nova Scotians need to know information, and going to court is not realistic for most people.
But it's important to remember that we as a society have decided that it is important, and it is important for Nova Scotians and Canadians to know what their elected officials are doing. And that is formalized in the law, and it's important for us to continue to respect those laws and follow them.
The complaint and discipline records are now available on cbc.ca/ns. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, we're now exactly 2 years away from the start of the Canada Games in Newfoundland and Labrador. And for the Games in 1977, Brent Kelly wasn't an athlete, but he sure made a mark. Here's a piece from 1991 looking at his involvement.
The ceremonies are about to begin.
The opening ceremonies of the 1977 Canada Summer Games in St. John's. Hundreds of young athletes from across the nation converge in the city. But this story is about a young Newfoundland athlete who could not participate. But he still made a name for himself in the summer of '77. At 22, under Games rules, Bren Kelly was too old to participate. But he still wanted to be a part of the Canada Summer Games. He wanted to proudly tell the rest of Canada that for the first time the Games were being held in his native Newfoundland. So he decided to spread the word by running across the entire nation, from Victoria to St. John's. Bren Kelly passed through many towns and cities across Canada, and when he arrived in Port aux Basques, Newfoundlanders realized that Bren Kelly and his dreams were for real. But deep down, Bren Kelly had a lot of doubts along the way.
Any moments when you sort of felt like chucking it all in?
About 1 million. I felt in northwestern Ontario, especially coming through Thunder Bay and Sault Ste. Marie, and that I really felt low as far as physically I was bad and mentally I was even worse. It's not, after a while, it's not physical anymore. It's more less the mental attitude that you had to take to run like this. But this 565 miles I got to do right now is going to be the high point of my whole trip.
The hard part was behind him now. After almost 4 months pounding 5,000 miles of pavement, he was on the home stretch. He would be buoyed now by the support of his fellow Newfoundlanders. Bren Kelly would arrive in St. John's just in time for the opening ceremonies of the Summer Games.
There's a man who is very highly honored and is getting a standing ovation from the thousands here.
Opening day had finally arrived, and so had Bren Kelly's day. He had become a Summer Games hero in his own right. Here's how sports commentator Ted Reynolds called it on CBC's national coverage of opening day.
And now, Brendan Kelly, 22 years of age, many pairs of shoes later, has come home And they're giving him a rant and roar and welcome, and he deserves it.
But all this was 14 years ago. The 77 Summer Games have long since come and gone.
You control the shuttle, okay? Let's go. Try it on your own, 25.
Today, Bren Kelly is still athletically inclined. He's a physical education instructor. On this occasion, he's substituting at St. Pat's School in St. John's. His memories of his experience in 1977 are still quite vivid, and he cherishes them. But do others still remember him?
You're at a function and somebody mentions your name and they say, you know, you did something one time, and they try to remember what it was, and oh yeah, and then they finally remember. Some of the kids now, sometimes when I'm in school or something, they bring it up if they see it in the library, in Newfoundland Quarterly or something like that, they see a picture or something like that. They bring it up and talk to you about it and ask you different things.
Bren Kelly says the grueling physical demands of his 120-day sojourn across the country really didn't bother him. But he adds, his mental attitude had a lot to do with his physical stamina.
It's never been the physical part, it's the mental attitude that you have towards what you're doing. It's, you know, some days you're in the middle of nowhere and you've got to get up and do your 10 or 15 mile interval, and it's that loneliness that can get you to.
His blisters and aching muscles have long since healed now, but happily for Bren Kelly, he can still enjoy the good part, the memories of the people he met along the way. And the nice thing about memories is that you can call on them at any time.
Sometimes I could be driving down Water Street in my car and think of somebody that I met in Rock Creek, BC, you know, and wondering what they're doing now. You know, you don't stay in contact or stuff like that, but you still, for that brief instance, met somebody that you will never forget.
I'm Glenn Tilley.
Welcome back. It's been a bad year for wildfires in many parts of the country. Significant losses have been reported from coast to coast. But in Nova Scotia, where the fires are now out, some are looking to what may be gained, like the potential for significant benefits for one of that province's favorite exports, blueberries. The CBC's Kayla Hounsell has more.
The blueberry harvest in Nova Scotia is in full swing. But just a couple of months ago, this grower wasn't sure he'd have a crop to harvest. We first met Blueberry Pete at a fire evacuation center. Yes, even then, that's how he introduced himself.
What I built up there, I'll never get it back.
He lost a lot of equipment and 20% of his crop in the fire that ravaged Shelburne County.
This was completely burnt off.
But he knew the fire would create new growth.
This is why this is all blueberries here to start with. This whole area burned just over 100 years ago.
Sure enough, newspaper clippings at the local museum point to the Great Forest Fire of 1911.
It has a massive root and rhizome system.
Here at the Wild Blueberry Research Institute, they say that massive root system is what makes blueberries different from other crops.
If you're looking at an apple tree, it might be 20-25% of the plant is in the form of a root system. But with these blueberries, it ranges between 75 to 85%.
If a fire comes through and burns out all of what we see here above the ground, what happens beneath the ground?
So what the plant will then do is it'll draw on the reserves that it has present in the root and rhizome system. And then from the rhizomes, you'll get the new shoots emerging.
It probably doesn't mean the industry, which exports more than $100 million worth of blueberries a year, will see an influx of growers.
It would take a considerable amount of money to bring a field in after that, but it would allow them to see if blueberries were there, right?
Blueberry Pete says his sprouts are already shooting back up, and he expects others will too.
And we're going to have a lot of blueberry picking along the highway.
A silver lining in blue for those who are so inclined. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Barrington, Nova Scotia.
Like a phoenix rising from the ashes there for those folks in Nova Scotia. And of course, the 34th annual Brigus Blueberry Festival is in just a couple of days and gonna go through the weekend. Ashley, you were there last year doing the weather, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I can't believe it was a year ago already.
Oh,
It's going too quick.
Do you like blueberries?
Love blueberries.
Excellent, me too. I saw some on Signal Hill. Looks like they need a little bit more water and a little bit more heat to really be ripe and ready.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see that. We'll certainly see some more water as we head through Thursday, it looks like. Let's take a look at what's going to happen. So there's your look ahead anyway for Wednesday evening. That area of low pressure that's going to bring rain to Labrador tomorrow is going to eventually spread that rain across the island as we head into the afternoon hours on Thursday. And this is also when we're going to see those winds pick up as well. So expect wind gusts across at least the island, somewhere between 60, 70 kilometers per hour. Again, that Wreck House area will see those winds in the first half of Thursday, upwards of 110 kilometers per hour. But yes, lots of shower activity expected. And as far as the temperatures are concerned, we are going to see them generally into the mid to upper teens, pretty much across the board, even up across Labrador. Best chance of seeing the sun will be for northern Labrador. Nain, you will hover around 15 degrees through the day. So how much rain are we talking about? This will take us from Wednesday evening through to about Friday morning. You can see there pockets of showers, generally 10 to 20 millimeters. We will likely see some pockets higher than that because some of these showers will be heavy at times. So some of us could see 20 to 30 millimeters, even 30 to 40 millimeters isn't out of the question in that time frame. Certainly much needed rain as far as the island is concerned. Up across Labrador, you're looking at between a trace to about 5 millimeters just for your Wednesday, or for your Thursday rather, into Friday. You'll see about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain for Lab West through the day tomorrow. So as far as your Thursday evening into Friday, that area of low pressure pretty much sticks around, however, tapers to showers. We will likely see a few peaks of sun in the mix as well for some areas up across Labrador before the next round of showers moves in. The temperatures are going to start to warm up, though. This is also when we're going to start to see some of that humidity, and you're looking at your temperatures into the 20s and Labrador between 15 and about 20 degrees through the day. Long range forecast showing temperatures into the 20s as we get into the weekend. It does look a bit unsettled and potentially some sun peeking out on Sunday afternoon. For central Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar forecast, a little bit more cloudy for western Newfoundland, but some sunshine for your Sunday, at least eventually. And then for eastern Labrador, rain the story on Saturday as that area of low pressure moves in. Sunday, same thing, but it does look dry for those of you in western Labrador by the time we get into Sunday. Now this shot is a nice one. Shared the evening sun in Heart's Content there. Paula shared this photo with us. Thank you so much for that. And if you have any to share, you can send them to my Facebook page, but the best place is to email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
That is a really nice photo, Paula. It looks like it belongs in one of the tourism commercials.
It absolutely does, You're right.
That is our show for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Come visit us again tomorrow night.